Transformation begins right here in Busan through the 2030 Busan World Expo. Busan will set a new course toward a better tomorrow for the Earth and for humanity. So we need your support to start a new movement.
I support.
지지합니다.
I support. I support.
지지합니다.
I support.
Busan, the city where you can experience nature, technology, and people. The one and only 2030 Busan World Expo awaits you.
See you right here in Busan.
See you right here in Busan. This campaign is brought to you by befm, 부산영어방송.
Are you a small business owner with innovative ideas or technology? We're here to help your business grow. The Korea Broadcasting Advertising Corporation, KOBACO, is providing financial assistance of up to 9 million won for local small business owners to produce and broadcast on-air advertisements. Applications are open from June 19th until July the 4th at 4 p.m. Visit the KOBACO website for details. We ask for participation and interest from small business owners.
The time is now 7 o'clock.
You know, despite the skies that cleared up over Busan yesterday, the rainy season, it's not over yet. And this year's rainy season has already led to damages, including one person gone missing in Jeonnam province. And heavy rain is forecast in parts of the country, especially in the Honam regions and Jeju province. While Busan seems to be far away from the heaviest of the rain clouds, well, let's keep in mind the weather is still very unpredictable. So let's take all the precautions and prepare to stay safe. I'm Catherine. This is Morning Wave in Busan on Thursday, June 29th on befm, 부산영어방송. Good morning, early birds. I hope you're all doing well. Yesterday, I have to say, it was rainy in the morning, and then it kind of cleared up. That was a little, unexpected in terms of, yes, we know, it's very intermittent, this rain. Anyhow, the rain front is apparently expanding and is forecast to bring heavy rain in both the southern regions of the country and also the capital area. Busan had a relatively dry day yesterday with under 25 millimeters of rain in the morning. And once again, the skies really clearing up in the afternoon. It was actually really nice. Showers came down in Chungbuk and Gyeongbuk, but it was relatively minor. The showers were relatively minor compared to the day before. And this was only a temporary break as the rain front is coming back down south, starting with the central region of the country during the day and bringing rain to the southern regions. The Korea Meteorological Administration, or KMA, forecasts over 250 millimeters of torrential rain in the Honam and Jeju regions and up to 200 millimeters in northern Gyeonggi. Heavy rain advisories are expected to be issued, and the weather authorities warn of sudden gusts of wind and even thunder and lightning. And keep in mind, listeners, that the ground is already weak from, the several days that we've had of continuous or on and off rain. So we need to be extra cautious, especially if you live on or near slopes or hills. And since we're talking about the rainy season, let's get to our text topic for this Thursday morning. There was huge flooding in Seoul last year. If you remember, you saw it was a tragedy. There were, vehicles upon vehicles that were flooded. People fell into manholes. People were stranded on top of their vehicles. And, the whole idea, could all of this have been prevented if people weren't required to go to work during a natural disaster, such as torrential rain and flooding? So, in your opinion, should we have to go into work during a natural disaster? 네, 전국에 장마가 계속되고 있는데요. 폭우 같은 재난 상황에서 출근하는 게 맞다, 아니다. 여러분 의견 보내주세요. So we're taking kind of a survey. We want to know your opinion. Let us know. Yes, you should still have to go into work, or, during a natural disaster, safety comes first. No, I vote no. So let me know what you're thinking. You can send in your messages through our BEFM live stream live chat on YouTube. Also, pound 9050, shop 9050. That's going to cost you 101. But you can also reach me for free on Kakao Talk and also on our app comment board as well. Looking ahead to our morning together, we have Lydia with Beyond the Headlines. Also, we have Stephanie coming in for City Insights. In our special interview in hour number 2, we're going to focus on the global rise in anti-LGBTQ sentiment. And we're talking about these stories that are really popping up, especially overseas. So stay tuned for that. Coming up next, today's headlines. The time is now 7:04. Here are today's headlines. President Yoon says retrenchment inevitable for sake of the people. President Yoon Suk-yeol says retrenchment and sound finances are now inevitable if the nation and the people are taken into account instead of political ambitions. Yoon made the remark yesterday when he chaired the fiscal strategy meeting of 2023. South Korea to release sea salt reserves amid high prices and demand. The Oceans Ministry said yesterday it will release sea salt reserves to cope with recent price hikes and rising demand. Up to 400 tons of salt will be released to major discount chain stores and traditional markets across the country starting today through July 11th. Tax authorities launched special probe on top private learning institutions. An official of the private education sector said yesterday marked the first time for the tax agency to conduct a special probe into such institutions since the Lee Myung-bak administration, which ran from 2008 to 2013. Downpours batter southern regions. Rain to start pouring again today. Reports of damage to housing and farmland kept mounting as heavy rains battered southern provinces overnight. The monsoon rain, which had waned in the southern regions as of yesterday afternoon, will start pouring again throughout the country today. Titanic tourist sub photos show wreckage being brought ashore. Parts of the tourist submersible that imploded on a deep dive to the Titanic, killing 5 people, have been seen for the first time since the incident. Metal wreckage from the Titan sub was unloaded from the Horizon Arctic ship in St. John's, Canada, on Wednesday local time. And these are today's headlines. This is Listening for the Weather by Big Runga.
So I'm listening for the weather to predict the coming day. Leave all thought of expectation to the weatherman. You know it doesn't really matter what it is he has to say, 'cause tomorrows keep on blowing in from somewhere. All the people that I know in the apartments down below, busy with their starring roles in their own tragedy. Sunlight sends you on your way, and those restless thoughts that cling to yesterday, never be afraid. somewhere on your way, in a supermarket checkout or a restaurant. I've been doing what I'm told. I've been busy growing old, and the days are getting cold, but that's alright with me. Sunlight sends you on your way, and those restless thoughts that cling to yesterday. Never be afraid of change. I'm calling on the phone. I hate to leave you on your own, but I'm coming home today. Yes, I'm coming home today. I've been doing what I'm told. I've been busy growing old, and the days are getting cold, but that's alright with me. Sunlight sends you on your way, and those restless thoughts that cling to yesterday. Never be afraid of change.
It is now time for Annie, our newscaster, and of course our writer as well for Morning Wave in Busan. She's going to let you know what's happening with Busan Updates. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes. So, before we jump in, I got to let you know, what's your take? Yay or nay? During a natural disaster, we're not just talking about like heavy rainfall, torrential rain, 폭우, but 폭설. I mean, I know we don't have it so much in Busan, but snowfall when it's
Right.
really, really heavy, like a blizzard, or I'm from California. Earthquakes. Like, should it be mandatory to go into work when there's a real natural disaster? And I'm not talking about, a little bit of rain here, a little bit of snow, like heavy, heavy.
Right. So immediately I was like, no, of course not. But then I was kind of thinking about it, and I think it depends on what your job is.
Like we as broadcasters.
We can do it at home.
Really?
No, no, I don't think
we got
it's
the evil eye.
necessary, but
Yeah.
I think anyone who works in emergency services, of course,
Oh,
they
yeah.
have to go. But
Yeah.
if it's a regular office job, I think you will be perfectly fine not going to the office for a day or two.
I don't know. Are the bosses listening, though? We'll find out. All right. Let's dive into our first update. So this is all about, of course, the rainy season and the humidity. It means an increase in waterborne illnesses, right?
Right. So Busan City has cautioned the people to take extra care to prevent waterborne illnesses. According to the city, it has seen an increase in waterborne or foodborne illnesses, especially with salmonella. And there have been 25 such cases reported in the first half of this year, with the number to increase in the summer season. Salmonella and other water or foodborne illnesses thrive in the summer, especially with the high heat and humidity.
Sure.
So right here, personal hygiene is crucial.
Right. So let's go through the guidelines.
Right, so it's simple. Wash your hands for at least 30 seconds with soap. Cook your food thoroughly. Boil the water for drinking. Wash and peel fruits or vegetables. Don't cook if you have diarrhea. Follow food sanitation rules when cooking. Don't cross-contaminate.
Right.
Your food, yeah. So your cooking surfaces, don't cut your vegetables on something you cut meat on.
Exactly, right. So they say the best thing is if you have like different cutting boards or toma, if you can have different ones for different foods,
Right.
they say that's
And
the best way to avoid that.
There's a little guideline on our stream if you want to know.
Ah, yes.
It's easier to see than me listing it off.
Yes, thank you. So next up, let's move to education. Busan's Office of Education is actually moving to a new location, and the city has narrowed the potential sites down to 2 spots, I hear.
Yeah, so the Office of Education said that it will relocate its headquarters to either Cheonpo-dong, that's at the current Norimaru site, or to Yeonsan-dong at the current City Hall parking lot. So both spots were deemed appropriate by an outside contractor who conducted the feasibility of the sites and also whether they meet all conditions. And the Education Office said that it will relay the results to the City Council within this month and make a final decision.
Yes, and actually the city and the education office are both trying to get their hands on the Norimaru site, right?
Yes, so the Education Office's original plan was to move their offices to the Cheonpo-dong site by 2030. But Busan City also has plans for the same site as a part of their urban regeneration plan that's involving the Bujeon Library right across the street. How the Norimaru site will be utilized will also be the key point of negotiations, factoring in public opinion as well as the general city plans.
I see. So we'll keep our eye on that one to see what happens. On to another education-related issue. A developer is looking into building a 39-story commercial residential building right next to or right by a local elementary school. And I guess the parents are not happy. They're protesting this.
Right. So there are plans to build 2 structures. One is a 39 stories and the other is 11 stories. And it's used as a dual commercial residential building just 12 meters from Onsem Elementary School over in Dongnae. So the parents of the students held a protest this week in front of Busan City Office of Education, calling for the authorities to withdraw the Education Environment Assessment Committee meeting. So this meeting is mandatory for construction projects that's located within 200 meters of an existing school and must get approval from the committee to be able to actually proceed.
I see. Well, what are the parents saying? Why are they against this?
Right. So, of course, the parents say that construction could severely infringe upon the children's learning rights and also threaten their safety. There are 1,200 students over at Onsem, and the school has had to install modular classrooms, which are essentially just portable classrooms on the school's field. The school actually has construction plans to expand its main building, and the parents argue that so much construction could bring major safety issues, especially for the children.
I see. Well, hopefully they can come to a really good compromise where the children will be kept safe, though. All right, next, let's talk about the Social Economy Fair that's taking place this weekend.
Right. The 5th Social Economy Fair in Busan will begin tomorrow and will last up until July 2nd over at Bexco. So this is a joint public-private exhibition to showcase products and services from social economic firms, and it's held under the slogan, "The Busan Social Economy is Good." And this year's event will be held on as well as offline. And there will be different booths set up for visitors to try out as well as buy products from socially responsible corporations. That's across fashion, beauty, food, tech, as well as eco-friendly products.
Okay.
There are also free upcycling programs. So there's a flea market also, some talks, tour programs, as well as a quiz show. And if you want more details, you can visit socialeconomyfair.kr.
Thank you for that. Our last item, this coming weekend is basically beach weekend because, aren't they all opening up?
Right. It's going to be rainy on Saturday, but all beaches in Busan and across the country will officially open on July 1st. And this includes Songdo, Gwangalli, Dadepo, Ilgwang, and Imlang beaches in Busan, as well as Haeundae and Songjeong, which have already opened on June 1st.
Yes.
And as this is the first beach season after COVID-19 restrictions have lifted, large crowds are expected, and the Oceans and Fisheries Ministry, along with the local governments, conducted prior safety checks, and they'll also crack down against overcharging. And the ministry also emphasized that beaches are safe against the release of the wastewater from Fukushima, and said that they will hold weekly radiation tests once Japan releases the water.
Well, thank you for all the local updates. Annie for now. And for you, the listeners, we are talking about natural disasters. And this is very much a serious issue because if you remember last year, especially last year, there were so many incidents where there was a lot of flooding. And when we talk about flooding, especially here in Busan, you may remember in certain cases there were flooding and people actually died. You saw photos of people on top of the cars, really having a difficult time. And hence we're asking your opinion. Should we have to go into work in a natural disaster? We as broadcasters, it's our duty to try to make it here and give you the news and the information. So we take that very seriously. But we're talking about, let's say, the average office worker. So we're talking about things like really, really heavy snow, 폭우, 폭설, not just a little bit of drizzly rain or a little bit of snow, like 지진, earthquakes. So 이런 재난 상황에서 출근을 꼭 하는 게 맞다. 혹은 아니다. 여러분 의견을 보내주세요. And here's Annie.
Good morning, everyone, and here's your traffic and weather for this hour. So there is a dump truck that is broken down in the 4th lane near the exit of Manduk Tunnel number 2 that's heading toward Manduk intersection, so please drive slowly. And the roads are quickly filling up with congestion from Manduk intersection to Manduk Catholic Church, also from Sukdung intersection to Tokchon intersection, and likewise on Sojongcheon Junction to Bugok intersection. So everyone please drive safely and slowly. Now if we jump over to the weather, the skies are cloudy this morning and current temperatures are averaging 24 degrees Celsius and afternoon highs will be going up to 26 degrees Celsius yet again. And despite the lull in rainfall yesterday, the monsoon rains are expected to begin back up again. So cloudy skies will persist throughout the day with possible rain late afternoon, and it will rain intermittently throughout the evening until tomorrow. There were reports in the southern regions of damages of flooding, so definitely take precautions if necessary. That's all for now. See you in the second hour.
Check this out.
This is Morning Wave in Busan.
Everybody, wait a minute.
This is Morning Wave.
Morning Wave.
You are listening to
Morning Wave.
Morning Wave in Busan.
What show is this?
This is Morning Wave in Busan.
Here we go. Morning Wave in Busan.
It is time for Haley and News Digest. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's Thursday already. Can you believe?
It is, finally. Well, not finally. Almost finally.
Almost, yes. We're almost there. Well, yay or nay in terms of natural disasters. And I'm going to exclude, emergency workers or even broadcasters because it's our duty to inform you and, the nature of our job. But generally speaking, 9 to 6, regular worker. Yay or nay, you should have to go in during some sort of a natural disaster. And by the way, our listeners are adding to our list, like Umberto says, what about wildfires? And somebody says, what about the pandemic? Or not just COVID, but just generally speaking.
I mean, wildfires, yes, if you're in an affected region, that's definitely a natural disaster that we should steer away from. But pandemic, I said, then should we not have come into work for the past 4 years?
All of us? Yeah, we still have to work.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, well, the thing is, it matters less what I think. It matters more what my employer thinks. Which is the sad truth, right? Yeah. But in my opinion, absolutely not. And I teach students, and I have to say, interestingly, my employer has they've had a vast change of attitude in what we're supposed to do during these natural disasters. So, just quick little funny story: a few years ago, when there was a typhoon,
yes,
in our group chat of teachers and staff, the faculty, they posted this photo of the weather forecast, and I was like, are they going to cancel class? And then underneath they said, so, leave early and drive carefully. I'm like, Thanks. But then starting last year, we've absolutely had a complete change. And I think having remote classes and having technology really helps in these cases because we're able to hold classes remotely. They canceled class during Hinamnor and we held everything online.
So it really does depend on the nature of the job.
Right.
All right. For our first news item, the government is in the process of checking in on those 2,000 plus unregistered children after we've learned of the tragedy in Suwon. But there are now concerns of illegal adoptions taking place.
That's right. So for reference, the government inspection over the 2,123 unregistered children that began yesterday. And this is going to continue until July 7th, which is when they hope they'll be done with all of the inspections. But at the same time, the police are looking into the possibilities of illegal adoptions via these online brokers. And we looked at a potential case involving this after the Suwon case. There was a case in Hwasong where a mother allegedly handed off her infant child to someone she met online. So according to a YTN report where the journalist went undercover posing as a single mother, well, there are first of all open chat rooms and online communities that deal with this sort of adoption. And she immediately got questions about where does she live and what is the gender of the baby. And also a 문화일보 report, this cited a specific case from back in 2014. A baby that was born in Incheon back then was given up for an illegal adoption a month after birth. And the adoptive parents actually gave her up after another month, and the birth mother sent her to a second couple for adoption. So the baby wasn't registered for birth for 2 years, and thus she didn't receive a single vaccination that she was supposed to. And according to Supreme Court records, there were 11 such cases that were dealt with just by the Supreme Court that actually sold infants at between 400 to 1 million won, and that involves 23 defendants from 2015 until last year. And also civic groups say that some of them don't want to go through the legal route and they look for adoption brokers for various reasons. But the thing is, in most of these cases, they prefer young girls and they will pay more for a particular gender. And the YTN report showed that in the past 5 verdicts in the lower courts, the birth mother gave up the child for money and the birth mother/broker made between 250,000 to 6.9 million won.
I see. What kind of punishment do they face?
So this is in violation of adoption procedures, which requires the birth mother to register the child and go through a certified adoption agency.
Yes.
And a violation of that can result in under 3 years in prison or under 30 million won in fines. However, in reality, 70% of the defendants who were found guilty, they were only sentenced to probation. And if money exchanged hands, that actually can be child trafficking, which is subject to under 10 years in prison.
Okay.
So the government said it's planning on running a birth registry period, a concentrated period within this year, the second half of the year, where they will give immunity or at least reduce punishment for voluntary registration.
Right. So this is just a story that keeps on giving us more facets of this unfortunate situation for so many of the kids out there.
Right.
So we'll continue to cover these types of stories. All right. Next, let's talk about the state of unpaid domestic labor in the country.
Right. So Statistics Korea this week released its figures on domestic labor, which is not included in the GDP. But this shows how much production and consumption came from unpaid domestic labor across different age lines and gender.
Okay.
So for the year 2019, which is where they conducted a survey, the unpaid domestic labor market is worth 490.9 trillion won. And broken down by age, it took 131.6 trillion won to provide childcare to children 14 or younger. And then afterwards, from the 15 to 64-year-old age group, chores like homekeeping, cooking, laundry, and cleaning, that involved 285.7 trillion won worth of labor and caregiving worth 118.8 trillion won.
Oh, so these numbers are pretty, telling. But what about by gender?
Right. So according to Statistics Korea, they actually divide the labor into surplus 흑자 and deficit 적자. So what that means in terms of labor, for an individual to have a surplus in his or her domestic labor, labor work means that your contribution to your household, it exceeded. So the contribution exceeded your quote unquote consumption, meaning you worked more than others. So being in the surplus necessarily isn't a good thing because you're contributing more, you're working more at home and doing more chores. And the deficit, on the contrary, means you got cared for more than you provided care for others.
Okay.
So an average person in South Korea, they go from being in the deficit, so being cared for more, to the surplus, meaning greater contribution, at the age of 26. So
26.
In your home, you kind of start to care for more. They hit their peak at 38. So this is the peak of your domestic labor. And the contribution dwindles constantly at about 78, at which point they go into a deficit, meaning they received more care than they provided for.
Okay,
however,
but by gender, you're going to tell us
yeah, that's the average. But for women, they go into the surplus at 25, which is reasonable, until 83.
83?
So meaning an average woman, likely a mom, grandma, they do more household work than other people for basically 60 years of their life. For men, their contribution to their household work starts from 31 to 46. 46.
That's 83 versus 46.
Exactly. So that's 16 years as opposed to nearly 60. And even at the peak age of 38, and that's for both men and women, a woman's domestic contribution was 18.48 million won as opposed to 2.59 million won for men. So there was a 7-time difference if we convert your unpaid domestic labor into what you maybe should be getting paid.
Well, this is really eye-opening in terms of the gap.
Yeah.
And you know what?
Post this on your fridge. For sure.
This is for the average, so we don't want to, brush, no broad strokes. So this is just, the information we're giving you.
Statistics, cold, hard numbers.
All right. Now let's talk about education. There is something called NEIS system. We call it NICE.
Yes.
That's what it's known as. The National Education Information System. It's used in public schools. However, it seems that the newest generation of this system is riddled with problems.
Right. And I'm going to quote a netizen, a commenter. The NICE system is anything but nice at this point. Right. I'm like, I had to. Sorry, not sorry. So the NICE system, it's a comprehensive administrative system for education institutions. So they connect the education ministry, local education offices to classrooms and schools. And teachers use this to input student grades, transcripts, and evaluations. If you're a teacher or even parent student, you know what this is.
Right.
Well, the Education Ministry spent 282.4 billion won to open the 4th generation of updates, which apparently has smartphone access and spell check for student records. However, between June 21st and 22nd, which is the first 2 days that the system was unveiled, there are about 10 instances just in the Seoul-Gyeonggi area where the answer keys to the final exams, they were leaked through the NICE system.
Ooh.
Right, and it's final exam season right now. So the Korean Federation of Teachers Union stated that 97% of the 1,882 teachers that were surveyed experienced various problems, not just with answer keys, but being able to log on, the server issues, and whatnot.
Okay.
And according to Democratic Party lawmaker An Min-seok, there were 4,729 requests and complaints that have been lodged regarding the NICE system. About 72 problems have been rectified and addressed, but that also leaves others that still are at large.
Right. So that's still a large percentage that have to be addressed. What is the problem, or what are the problems with the malfunctions?
Right. So they're actually going all the way back to the development of the software. So some people say that the problem began with the Education Ministry having banned large corporations from participating in this government project. And that is the way it's supposed to be under the Software Promotions Act. However, there's an exception for key projects that contribute to social stability, whereby they do allow larger corporations to take part. The union also raised issues with one of these small and mid-sized enterprises that got a contract with this software update that was apparently under government restrictions from partaking in public projects back in 2017. So it had a record of being banned from such projects, but it was allowed back on. And the teachers also, for more of an on-the-scene issue, they take problems with the way that the government Education Ministry in particular is dealing with the issue. So the ministry apparently sent out an official notice to the teachers and the schools to please edit and change the final exam questions after the answer key was leaked. Right. So the union is saying that they haven't received so much as an apology or any responsibility from education authorities. And this is just kind of shifting the responsibility and the work onto the teachers. And they called on the education minister, Lee Ju-ho, to resign, taking responsibility.
And anything related to education or like exams, it's such a sensitive issue here in Korea. And once again, to all the students right now, especially like the high schoolers, they're taking final exams right now.
Right.
Such a sensitive time. So troublesome. Lastly, let's talk about something that we usually don't talk about. Malaria. The number of malaria cases in South Korea has nearly doubled this year.
I had to do a double take because I'm like malaria
in Korea?
Right, in Korea. So according to the Korea Disease Control and Prevention Agency, the KDCA, there have been 221 malaria cases this year, and that's until June 23rd.
Okay.
And that is nearly double the number of cases in the last 3 years, and 80% of the cases are concentrated in the capital area. And the spike in numbers is likely from increased outdoor activities this year due to social distancing restrictions going down, which of course exposes you more to mosquitoes.
Yes.
So malaria is a disease that's caused by a parasite, usually carried by mosquitoes. This is spread to humans through infected mosquitoes, and people who have malaria usually feel very sick, including high fever and shaking chills. So if you are going outdoors, I know it's hot, but preventive clothing, also mosquito nets and bug spray, it can protect you.
Yes.
And according to actually even the U.S. CDC, they've reported the first domestic malaria case in the States, one in Florida and another in Texas. And that was the first time that a domestic case has risen there in 20 years. And according to the global health authorities, the World Health Organization, due to El Nino, tropical diseases may increase this year. So that includes not only malaria, but dengue fever, the Zika virus, and others. And because of global warming, with the temperatures going up elsewhere, the likelihood of these usually tropical diseases spreading to new areas is very much possible.
I see. So let's keep that in mind. Yes, so those mosquitoes might be carrying these things. So let's be careful, as Haley said. Thank you for going over all the news items. We'll check in with you in hour number 2. Thank you, Haley.
See you in a bit.
All right. For right now, though, we're actually going to take a song break. So here it is. This is My Head and My Heart by Ava Max.
Baby, now and then I think about me now and who I could have been. And then I picture all the perfect that we lived, till I cut the strings on your tiny violin. My mind's got my mind of its own right now, and it makes me hate me. I'll explode like a dynamite if I can't decide, baby. My head and my heart are torturing me, yeah. Lost my mind in your arms, I go to extremes, yeah. When angels tell me run, and monsters call it love. My head and my heart are caught in between, yeah. La 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 la, la 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 la. Should I stay or should I go? You held my hand when I had nothing left to hold, and now I'm on a roll. My mind's got my mind of its own right now, and it makes me hate me. I'll explode like a dynamite if I can't decide, baby. My head and my heart are torturing me, yeah. Lost my mind in your arms, I go to extremes, yeah. When angels tell me run, and monsters call it love. My head and my heart are caught in between, yeah. La 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la. I'm standing at the crossroads. I cross my heart.
All right, everybody. It is now 7:38 on this Thursday morning. So we're talking about the rainy season. It is, of course, not only unpleasant, but it can be extremely dangerous, especially at work sites. According to the Employment and Labor Ministry, accidents involving flooding, landslides, due to slopes, structural collapses, electric shocks, and even suffocation happen more often during the rainy season than other times. You know, at the same time, though, the high heat and humidity can lead to heat stroke and even dehydration, especially for those working outside. The Labor Ministry and the Korea Occupational Safety and Health Agency, they actually hold unannounced checks every other Wednesday at so-called high-risk work sites. At the same time, municipalities are still working on fixing the damage from last year's typhoon Himnamnor. This includes the Naengcheon stream in Pohang, which flooded and led to 7 people dying, trapped in an underground parking garage. But the local government has just put up temporary embankments to hold back the water, and it's actually going to take years to fully repair. And these rain-related safety risks do escalate during the summer season, and preventive safety is basically an all-season-long issue. It should be year-round, but especially during this season. And by the way, I do have a quick reminder to everyone listening, as the monsoon rains are expected to pick back up this afternoon. If you can, please take public transportation to and from work, when it rains. If you are driving, make sure to keep a safe distance with a car in front of you. Drive safely and avoid any sort of camping in heavy rain conditions. And for flood-related information, you can download the app 홍수 알림이 for updates in your respective area. So basically, please stay safe and dry, everyone. Text topic. Speaking about natural disasters. So I'm talking about like extreme natural disasters, such as torrential rain, like to the point where it's flooding, like blizzard-like snow conditions, heavy snow. What else? Earthquake, and even wildfire, depending on where you are. During these types of natural disasters, should people have to go into work? And just for argument's sake, I'm going to exclude, emergency workers and whatnot. But what is your opinion? 전국에 장마가 계속되고 있는데요. 폭우, 폭설, 지진, 산불, 재난 상황에서 출근하는 게 맞다, 아니다. 여러분 의견 보내주시면 됩니다. And I'll be back with our hot clip. For our clip today, I want to cover a story happening in France. Apparently, there was a 17-year-old teenager who was shot and killed by police near Paris on Tuesday local time during a traffic check. And so the teenager has been named by his relatives as Nahel M, apparently shot at point-blank range. And so let's find out more with this clip from France 24.
The morning after the night before, the Paris suburb of Nanterre is almost unrecognizable. Burnt-out cars and debris litter the streets, a result of Tuesday night's riots, which led to dozens of arrests, as well as minor injuries to many policemen. The reason for the protests? The death of a 17-year-old, named only as Nael M, pulled over for supposedly breaking traffic rules. Speaking in Marseille on Wednesday, French President Emmanuel Macron called the killing inexcusable.
I want to say to his family, all our solidarity and the affection of the nation is with you. An adolescent was killed. It's inexplicable and inexcusable. These are words of affection, sorrow, and support for his family and loved ones.
An eyewitness filmed the police performing the check, one pointing a gun at the driver. When Nael tried to pull away, the officer fired at point-blank range, killing the teenager. The police initially said that the driver tried to hit the officers with his car, but video evidence appears to contradict that claim. The officer who fired the deadly shot was taken into custody, accused of voluntary manslaughter. Fresh protests are expected on Wednesday night in Nanterre, as well as some surrounding areas, with Interior Minister Gérald Darmanin announcing police reinforcements in order to keep the peace.
I have decided to mobilize 2,000 police to ensure that the public is kept calm and to ensure that public order is maintained.
Incidents of police shooting at vehicles has risen since the law was relaxed in 2017, allowing officers to open fire if a fleeing vehicle poses a danger to public safety.
Well, the officer accused of killing this teenager claims that he had fired because he felt his life was in danger, and he is in custody on charges of voluntary manslaughter. The thing is, the protests, they're not over. They are continuing. We'll keep an eye on the situation. This was your hot clip for today.
Stay tuned. You're listening to Morning Wave in Busan.
It's time for Beyond the Headlines. We have Lydia here. Good morning.
Good morning.
I hope you're doing well.
I'm doing really well.
Good.
Well, today I get to ask you a question.
Me?
First.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, here we go. I'm nervous.
Well, Catherine, what is Morning Wave and its purpose?
Ooh, Morning Wave in Busan. In my opinion, the purpose of our show is to inform our audience and listeners, not just about the news, hot issues, and really provide accurate information. That's our goal, like to give you up-to-date, accurate information. Why do you ask?
Well, that's right. Our goal is to deliver accurate information to our listeners in a timely manner. So fundamentally, you would say we care deeply about what kind of information people are getting out there.
Oh, yes.
But what if someone impersonates you, Catherine, hacks into our system, aka your microphone, and tells our listeners that there's going to be a snowstorm in Busan this afternoon?
Oh, my goodness.
Well, anyone with a common sense, which is most of our dear listeners, would know Busan doesn't get any snowstorms in the middle of summer. But what if you were a president of a country on national TV saying that country has been invaded by enemies?
Oh, this is serious.
Right, but in reality, it's someone impersonating the president, and it's plausible but extremely dangerous fake news.
I mean, this is extremely dangerous. You could put people in a panic.
Yes. Well, some of you may already know just a couple of weeks ago, this actually happened in Russia. A deep fake version of Vladimir Putin. So deep fake is a synthetically created media, as you know. And if you can look at the screen, it's this image that actually was aired. Well, this deepfake version of Putin declared martial law and said Ukraine's army had invaded Russian borders.
Wow.
In middle of everything that's happening. And this footage of him saying that aired on some of the country's television channels and radio stations. Well, soon after, authorities said the TV channels and radio stations have been hacked, and the deepfake was then able to make its way to the national airwaves.
My goodness.
Well, it was a very sketchy and potentially dangerous situations, right?
Yes, and so right now we do have an image of the Pope. This one was really popular.
Yes.
And not in I'm not saying in a good way, but I mean, this one really made the rounds, right?
I thought it was actually at first real because he's, like kind of Italian and they're very fashionable, but then turned out it was not real.
Right.
Right. But in the social media age, fake news is ubiquitous. For example, we saw that in the age of COVID-19, people have been exposed to all manner of misleading or false information, which has even included the wild claim that, their 5G microchips used for cell phones were in the vaccines.
Right.
Or some even claim that it was all, Bill Gates, the Microsoft founder, was behind that. Or speaking of Donald Trump, he said that he took hydroxychloroquine, which is a drug to treat malaria, to prevent coronavirus infection, even though it's an unproven treatment. And the consequences of this type of information are very significant. It led to more people skeptical of vaccinations, which most likely led to more death, right? And apparently after Donald Trump had tweeted about hydroxychloroquine, people wanting to purchase a substitute for that drug increased by 200% online.
That's right.
So again, misinformation it's not new, but the speed of how fast information can spread now globally and how individuals in position of power can sway public opinions / actions is very significant.
So we have been hearing about like these deep fakes, right? I mean, things that look so real, like you have to question sometimes your eyes and your sanity. What other troubling issues surrounding this type of technology are we dealing with?
Yes, so first of all, so the listeners are aware, according to experts, typically deepfakes are often used creatively or for fun, like the pictures that I showed you earlier. But increasingly, deepfakes are used to purposefully spread false information, or they may have malicious intent behind their use.
Yes.
So they can be designed to harass, intimidate, demean, and undermine people. Additionally, they can be used for identity fraud and to discredit public figures and celebrities. Deepfakes can also create misinformation and confusion about important issues.
Indeed, like we just saw all the examples, including the last one. I think it was of Donald Trump also being like dragged away, right?
Right. And most recently, women facing new sexual harassment with deepfake pornography. So in 2019, deepfake detection software firm DeepTrace found 96% of 14,000 deepfakes were pornographic in nature. And there were even some free apps that would, make a normal picture of a woman wearing clothes appear nude in footage. And unfortunately, often for revenge porn and blackmail.
That's not even real.
Not real.
I know. So that's like so troublesome. So not only is it fake, but people are still using that for blackmailing
against these women.
Right.
And in Australia, deepfake apps have even allowed perpetrators to bypass this so-called revenge porn laws. And this is an issue that's expected to soon become even more severe.
Right. So we're talking basically about sharing like explicit images and video without consent. Can we get like a particular case?
Right. So, get this. Noelle Martin was an 18-year-old law student from Australia when one night she did a reverse Google image search out of curiosity. So she uploaded a photo of herself to see where her photos are. It's just like, typing in your name and see what pops up. So she thought that she will find pictures of her on her friends' social media pages. Instead, she found hundreds of explicit images of her face photoshopped onto the bodies of porn actresses engaged in sexual acts. At least Noelle Martin discovered these images on her own and took the matters into her own hands. It's not always the case for victims of deepfake.
Yes.
Beyond this, deepfakes are also used in identity fraud and scam, particularly in forms of video messages from a trusted colleague or a relative requesting a money transfer. So imagine people, threatening you with these fake pictures and saying that they're your colleague or your friends or your family. So the FBI has issued an advisory warning of an uptick in extortion schemes, including fake nudes. The agency said April this year, it's received an increasing number of reports of such quote-unquote sextortion schemes. And one study even found that identity fraud using digital manipulation cost U.S. financial institution up to U.S. $20 billion just in 2020. And that number is, of course, increasing.
Right. And so to I'll wrap up and to really hit this home, really to let people know how dangerous it can be. What would you say in terms of everything that we've been talking about? What should we know?
Well, we should know that as of this week, thankfully, in England, deepfake pornography has been illegalized. So you can be punished up to 6 months of jail time if you get caught with that. And, experts say that one thing is clear with AI technology rapidly evolving every day and with little regulations, it's going to spread really quickly. But the question is not whether videos like these will become more popular, but rather how much worse things actually could go. So I think it's something that we should all think about. It is very dangerous. Yes, it could be fun, but be careful with what kind of contents that you are consuming every day.
Right. It's kind of scary to think. I mean, any innocuous, like harmless photo that might be out there because of social media, everybody's photos out there, that they can use that and transpose that and put that on something so not good, such as AKA porn, right? Well, of course, we're going to continue to follow what happens in this realm. But thank you for bringing this to our attention. We do appreciate it.
Yes, of course. I'll see you guys next week.
All right. This was Lydia with Beyond the Headlines. And we're due for a final song. Song request by Umberto. This is If I by 백지영.
이제 난 어떻게 해야 해 기다리다 후회해도 다시 난 너여야만 해 멀리 구름 뒤에 숨어도 내 맘속에 밤이 찾아오면
부산을 한 장의 사진에 담는다면 어디로 가야 할까요? 꼬꼬마 시절 이때만큼은 세상을 내려다보며 꿈을 키웠고 용돈을 모아 산 사진기는 아직도 서랍 속에 있습니다. 시간이 흘러 키는 자라고 사진은 어디서든 찍을 수 있는 세상이 되었지만 부산의 진짜 모습을 보기 위해서는 같이 가볼 곳이 있습니다. 광복동에서 부산을 내려다보며 우리와 함께 해온 그곳. 새롭게 불을 밝힌 다이아몬드 타워와 함께 용두산 공원이 우리를 다시 찾아왔습니다. 북한과 남항, 멀리 남구와 해운대까지 부산을 한눈에 담을 수 있는 그곳. 알록달록 꽃시계와 함께 다시 시민의 품으로 돌아온 용두산 공원은 부산의 또 하나의 명소입니다. 이 캠페인은 대선공익재단과 bfm 부산영어방송이 함께합니다.
9년 전 한국에서의 새로운 출발을 위해 부산을 처음 찾은 프랭크. 부산의 자연과 사람, 부산에서 누리는 모든 것을 사랑하는 그는 부산의 변함없는 한대에 늘 감탄합니다.
I think that Busan people are actually very, very kind and very welcoming. If I seemed a little lost, there was always someone that was there to ask me if I needed help. They're more seriously friendly than it's very serious. I very seriously want to help you.
부산의 한결같은 모습도 늘 감동을 주지만 이제는 부산의 미래를 꿈꾸며 2030년 부산의 새로운 도약을 기대합니다.
Busan people are very proud of their city. They want to share the city with everyone. If we get the World Expo, it'll really put Busan on a global map.
세계 박람회가 어울리는 도시, 미래를 향한 힘찬 도약. 부산에서 출발한 파도는 이미 세계를 향해 뻗어 나가고 있습니다. 2030 부산 세계 박람회. 부산이 시작하고 대한민국이 함께 이뤄갑니다. 이 캠페인은 지역과 함께하는 든든한 동반자 BNK 부산은행과 함께합니다.
During the summer monsoon season, Korea is often met with heavy rainfalls. Various accidents, including landslides and building collapses due to weak grounds, may occur during this time. So here are some tips that could keep you safe from long and wet monsoon season in Korea. First, regularly check and maintain water and drainage channels. Second, fix objects that could be blown away by severe wind, such as boards, TV networks, and others. Third, residents who live near areas prone to landslides, flooding, and sinkholes should be aware of the location of a nearby shelter as directed by authorities. And lastly, be aware of getting electric shocks. Always take preventive measures when using electric appliances to protect against electric shocks. Above all, staying informed of what to do is the most important. Tune in to befm 부산영어방송 for emergency broadcast. This campaign is brought to you by befm 부산영어방송.
The time is now 8 o'clock.
It's morning.
And what a lovely morning.
Dynamic Busan.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hello, Chevy.
What show is this?
Hello.
Hello, baby.
Hey, buddy.
Hello, everybody. Live from Korea's dynamic city, this is Morning Wave in Busan.
It is now 8 o'clock. This is news highlights. President Yoon says retrenchment inevitable for sake of the people. President Yoon Suk-yeol says retrenchment and sound finances are now inevitable if the nation and the people are taken into account instead of political ambitions. Yoon made the remark yesterday when he chaired the fiscal strategy meeting of 2023. Yoon said during the past year, the government has shifted the focus of the nation's finance to soundness, making a transformation from the previous government's finances, which he described as quote and unquote reckless and careless. The president then dismissed claims that the government needs to spend more, even if it means getting more loans. He said such a move would be an act of stealing from the future generation that must be strongly rejected. South Korea to release sea salt reserves amid high prices and demand. The Oceans Ministry said yesterday it will release sea salt reserves to cope with recent price hikes and rising demand. Up to 400 tons of salt will be released to major discount chain stores and traditional markets across the country starting today through July 11th. Sea salt prices jumped more than 10% on year this month, due mainly to the fall in production amid unfavorable weather conditions, according to the Korea Agri-Fisheries and Food Trade Corporation. Demand for sea salt has also surged recently in South Korea, as some shoppers and retailers are stockpiling it in fear of a supply shortage and the potential health hazards stemming from Japan's planned release of radioactive water from the wrecked Fukushima nuclear power plant. Tax authorities launched special probe on top private learning institutions. An official of the private education sector said yesterday marked the first time for the tax agency to conduct a special probe into such institutions since the Lee-Myung-bak administration, which ran from 2008 to 2013. Insiders of the private education sector believe the agency's probe targeted large-sized institutions called hagwon in Korean, including those which enjoyed significant growth in recent years. Tax authorities are likely to closely look for any illegalities in such institutions' earnings structure and possibility of tax evasion. Downpours batter southern regions, rain to start pouring again today. Reports of damage to housing and farmland kept mounting as heavy rains battered southern provinces overnight, with up to 365 millimeters of rain swamping the region since Sunday. The monsoon rain, which had waned in the southern regions as of yesterday afternoon, will start pouring again throughout the country today due to the influence of low atmospheric pressure, the Korea Meteorological Administration, or KMA, said. The Greater Seoul region, the Western region, and Gangwon Province and Chungcheong Province will see showers accompanied by strong wind, lightning, and thunder until the afternoon. It will travel to affect the inland areas of South and North Jeolla provinces and North and South Gyeongsang provinces in the afternoon. Titanic tourist sub photos show wreckage being brought ashore. Parts of the tourist submersible that imploded on a deep dive to the Titanic, killing 5 people, have been seen for the first time since the incident. Metal wreckage from the Titan sub was unloaded from the Horizon Arctic ship in St. John's, Canada on Wednesday local time. Photographs showed metal pieces from the sub covered in tarps before cranes lifted them onto trucks. U.S. Coast Guard officials have said the submersible's landing frame and rear cover were found among the debris. The debris brought ashore appeared to include at least one titanium end cap, the sub's portal with its window missing, as well as a titanium ring landing frame and the end equipment bay. This was News Highlights. It's time for Issue Wagle. Let's begin our chat with Haley. She's back.
Hello again.
Yes. And so, unfortunately, we have to begin with yet another fatal daytime DUI accident. What happened?
Right. So we're talking about a case in Osan in Gyeonggi province that happened this Tuesday. So in a online video that has gone viral, a car ran a red light onto a group of pedestrians that were crossing on a crosswalk on their green, and this resulted in one woman in her 70s dying and 2 others being injured. So in the video, you can see that the driver, whom we found out later is a 25-year-old male, he just drives off after he hits the pedestrians, and one person is just like actually on his on the car vehicle and and dives off, and he runs actually another red light, and he drives quite recklessly, as you can see in the dash cam footage. He drives past stopped vehicles at an intersection, and he has to kind of veer to the right very dangerously between the vehicle and the sidewalk, and then runs into a pole. And then he drives for another kilometer or so until he hits another vehicle, injuring that driver, which is when he came to a stop. So it was basically a hit and run, multiple hits. And then when he was arrested on the spot and he was clearly inebriated, his blood alcohol concentration level was 0.2%. For reference, 0.03% is the threshold for a DUI, driving under the influence, drunk driving, and 0.2%, which is slightly over 10 times the legal amount, according to experts, is considered very high, and symptoms at this point includes confusion, disorientation, nausea, and 0.2% is actually when blackouts begin. And this accident happened at 1:40 p.m., so just after lunch. lunchtime in broad daylight.
And the thing is, like, I feel like it's kind of like deja vu. We've been talking about so many of these daytime DUIs, seemingly unending, and the prosecution has come up with some drastic measures to go into effect starting next month.
Right, and we say drastic, but I mean, at this point, is anything too drastic to stop DUIs? So according to the Supreme Prosecutor's Office, starting July 1st, those who commit either fatal drunk driving accidents or cause multiple injuries, or people with history of multiple DUIs will actually get their vehicles seized, meaning the authorities will be able to take away their vehicles.
Okay.
So these would include people who have 2 or more DUIs within a span of 5 years that injured another person, or those with 3 or more DUIs in the same span of time, even without injuries to another person. And multiple DUI offenders, on principle, will be arrested on the scene and taken into police custody for questioning. The police will also actively investigate cases with suspected switching of drivers after they got pulled over, or abetting in drunk driving. So these come as eased COVID restrictions have led to a rebound in drunk driving. So actually, last year, 130,000 DUI cases were caught, including 15,000 DUI-led accidents. And this is back to pre-COVID levels, unfortunately. And of course, we have summer vacation season coming up, which is always a time of increased DUIs. So the police will hold concentrated crackdowns during vacation season every Friday, as well as random checks.
Right, but do we really need a concentrated crackdown? It's an absolutely no-no. Drunk driving is inexcusable in my book and pretty much every.
Unfortunately, though, the thing is DUIs are quite often common with repeat offenders. So, having these concentrated crackdowns, really serious financial and legal ramifications, they do go a long way in stopping people from doing this.
Let's hope so. Next, it's not even July yet. We're almost there, not quite yet, but the heat wave last week led to a workplace fatality.
Right. So this case from June 19th, a 31-year-old male worker, he fell over at his job and passed away. So he was a parking garage attendant in charge of gathering shopping carts at a warehouse market in Hanam in Gyeonggi province. And according to reports, his shift started at 11 a.m. that day. And during this time, he said he didn't feel well. And he sat down at a corner of the parking garage and then he passed out. He was taken to the hospital but died. So the daytime high temperatures in Hanam City that day was 33 degrees Celsius. And this was the second day with the heat wave advisory. And according to reports and his colleagues, his workload and working conditions were also quite severe, it seems. So on average, there are about 200 of those shopping carts that come out of a parking lot every single hour. And his job was to push them to the entrance of the building. We often see them at grocery stores.
Yes.
And then the previous day, the victim sent a screenshot of his pedometer app to his colleague. And it turns out the day before, when there was also a heat wave advisory, he walked 43,000 paces. And it's usually people's goal is to walk 10,000 paces.
Like Manbo we talk about, right?
And that was in the span of 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. or equal to 26 kilometers. And the problem is that there was no air conditioning in the parking garage, and even the air circulator isn't on all day long.
Such a tragedy. So we always talk about time in and out. And again, about those who work in the sun and any type of extreme temperature that they need breaks away from the heat or the sun and really need to stay hydrated.
Right. So it turns out that the company does have a break room, but that's located on the 5th floor of the building. He was working on the 1st floor parking garage, and that is about 4 minutes away if you take the escalator. So the workers get a 15-minute break every 3 hours. So if you were to have gone to the break room, half of his break time would have been spent just walking there and
coming back.
Exactly.
Going back, right?
So most people who work in that part of the building, they just kind of hang out at the parking lot, partially in the sun. So the company refused to comment, actually, saying that all interviews need to go through the official channels through the corporate headquarters. And the government does recommend outdoor workers get a 10 to 15-minute break every hour during a heat wave advisory. However, as I said, this is just a recommendation, so they cannot enforce it.
I see. Once again, such a tragedy. For our next issue, slightly lighter issue, we often get takeout to save on delivery fees.
Right.
I do it all the time. And then I saw restaurants are charging takeout fees now.
I feel so betrayed.
I feel like, what is going on?
Right. So, of course, we all do this. When you look at the delivery fee and it's like 4,000 won and you're like, ugh. And then you look at the map, it's like about 1 kilometer away. Yeah, I'll walk or even take my car.
Right.
But according to a social media user, this person went to get takeout and the restaurant, and they took a photo of the kiosk, charged them 2,500 won in takeout fees.
Why?
Great.
I'm sorry.
Great
really,
question.
Why?
And the thing is, delivery fees are usually, I see a minimum of 2,000 won to even 4,000, 5,000. So this is basically getting delivery, but you're using your own gas or energy to walk or drive there.
Yes.
So customers, of course, say that's excessive. I feel betrayed personally.
Right.
That, we used to get discounts for takeout.
Yes.
And the thing is, now I'm so confused, and this is my personal rant, bear with me, because cafes, some of them will charge extra for dining in.
Okay,
Right.
They're going to charge you for dining in, like going into the restaurant?
Cafes.
Like the drinks,
the drinks.
Okay,
With the drinks, they give you discounts or they charge you extra
if
for
you takeout.
Yeah, if you take out, you get a discount at cafes.
But then
apparently at restaurants nowadays, if you get takeout, you get charged extra. So I'm like, am I supposed to dine in, take out, just kind of hang out by the entrance? What's happening? Well, businesses, their opinion is because the price of takeout containers, they do add up.
That plastic container doesn't, I don't know, does it cost 2,500 or 3,000 won?
Not 2,500 won,
Right.
but exactly. So that's the thing. So, I used to work in the restaurant industry. I know that they do add up. And that was also always our constant complaint of how expensive these plastic containers were. But then the thing is, just for the sake of fairness, if you order delivery and you pay the 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 won delivery fee, that money goes to the delivery.
Yes.
The delivery person and the delivery app. So restaurant owners actually cannot charge container fees for deliveries. So then why are they charging it for takeout customers? So are they just kind of trying to make up for the losses by dumping on 2,500 won to takeout customers? So there's an issue of fairness. And netizens, commenters, they're
what are they saying?
Being a little bit sarcastic. They're like, oh, we're going to start getting charged for just setting foot in a restaurant, or are we going to get charged for plates and dishes now? What's happening here?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see. Maybe we'll get more stories like this, and we'll see if things change.
Right.
But anyhow, finally, let's talk about this ancient mural found in Italy, which is sparking a fierce food debate. What is this about?
Right. So our second day in a row with Italy, Italian stories. So in Italy, if you find anything, this is about 2,000 years old. So another 2,000-year-old fresco. It's a mural with a fresco was found in Pompeii.
Okay.
And there's food depicted in the picture, which looks like a pizza with pineapples.
Oh, do we have an image?
We do have an image on our YouTube streaming. So, we're going to get real hungry with the food descriptions, but I want to ask our listeners first. Pineapples on a pizza, yay or nay?
I'm like seeing, Hawaiian pizza?
Yeah, Hawaiian pizza. So I'm seeing Annie nod
Annie's nodding furiously.
Vigorously, yes. What about you? Are you a pro or
I don't like anything sweet on my pizza. That's just me. I don't like the sweet potato crust. I'm not into the pineapple. Oh, really? Oh, no. Am I in the minority?
But no, the pineapples, I'm a little bit iffy. My mom likes it. Her favorite is Hawaiian.
Oh.
But I give her all my pineapples.
Oh.
Yeah.
You're like, I'll have the ham.
I don't like cooked fruit. That's weird. Fruit should be cold. That's just my opinion. Once again. All right. So a little bit of history, a little bit of archaeology. This fresco was unearthed during an excavation in the Reggio 9 area of the Pompeii Archaeological Park, which is close to Naples. And Naples Napoli is the birthplace of pizza. Yes. So this painting on the wall is what is believed to have been in a home in the hallway of a home that apparently had a bakery in its annex.
Ooh.
So the fresco looks like it's depicting a round focaccia bread topped with different fruits. I'm so hungry right now.
I know. That looks so good.
Right. So the thing is, though, the pineapple, it kind of does look like a pineapple. It's, yellow, golden, has spiky stems, but it may not be a pineapple, at least in the conventional sense because, little history 101, the pineapple was first introduced to Europeans via Christopher Columbus in 1493, which is way after this fresco was painted.
Okay.
Although to have that detail of a fresco 2,000 years ago, just
amazing.
Yeah, mind-blowing.
Yes.
But Naples is, once again, going back home of the margarita pizza. This comprises a simple mix of tomatoes, mozzarella, fresh basil, EVO, extra virgin olive oil. And to many people, especially to Italians, the notion of having fruit on a pizza is offensive.
And Umberto agrees. No pineapples on pizza, period. That should be a crime. And then we have, on the 멋진 날, as a vegan, Hawaiian pizza is the best of all. So we have an online debate going on.
And then, okay, I'm going to give you an opinion, a very trusted opinion.
Okay.
Owner of one of the oldest pizzerias in Naples, Gino Serbillo, he says in Pompeii, there were many forms of flatbread that were topped with veggies or fish of the day, and that is the ancient form of pizza. And actually, fruits may have been more of a main ingredient during ancient Roman period.
Oh.
So he did say that is possible. However, when reporters asked him, so then are pineapples on pizzas permitted? His answer, no. That's it.
No.
He said, taste our taste. We make traditional pizzas and would never use pineapples.
I agree. But
yeah.
And he says no.
So,
we'll see.
That's
it's up to you. You can choose your toppings. That's the beauty of pizza,
Ancient
right?
Romans may have had pineapples on their pizza. So next time someone gives you,
Hey, though,
grief.
isn't a tomato technically a fruit?
Tomato is, okay. Technically, it's a vegetable, I think.
It is?
There are debates online. I'll come back to you. Let me do my research. I don't want to give you fake news.
All right. Yeah. Well, we're going to leave it up to Haley to do our fact-checking for us. Thank you, Haley. This was issue wa글. And here is Annie for our updated weather and traffic.
Good morning again. It is currently 8:19 a.m. and here's your weather and traffic. So the roads are backed up over on 대학로 from 서대신 intersection to 동대신 intersection. Also on 가야대로 from 새벽시장 intersection to 낙동 bridge. Likewise on 충렬대로 from 미남 intersection to 내성 intersection. And it is also backed up over on 연수로 from 신리 junction to 망미 hill. Everyone, please drive safely. If we switch over to the weather, the skies are cloudy this morning, but the sun is peeking out here and there, and current temperatures are averaging 25 degrees Celsius, and afternoon highs are expected to go up to 26 degrees Celsius. Although the rain has stalled for a bit, the monsoon rains, are expected to begin back up again this afternoon, so definitely pack your umbrellas and be prepared for some humidity today. That's all for now. Let's hand it back to Catherine.
Can't touch this.
Oh, here is an oldie but goodie. MC Hammer with You Can't Touch This.
You can't touch this. You can't touch this. My music hits me so hard, makes me say, oh my Lord, thank you for blessing me. What am I to rhyme and to hype me? It feels good when you know you're down. A super dope homeboy from the Oak Town, and I'm known as such. And this is a beat you can't touch. I told you, homeboy, you can't touch this. Yeah, that's how we living, and you know you can't touch this. Look in my eyes, man, you can't touch this. Yo, let me bust the funky lyrics. Fresh new kicks and bands, you got it like that. Now you know you wanna dance, so move out of your seat and get a fire girl and catch this beat while it's rolling. Hold on, pump a little bit and let them know what's going on like that. Like that. Hold on a minute, just don't fall on back. Let them know that you're too much. And this is a beat they can't touch. Yo, I told you can't touch this. Why you standing there, man? You can't touch this. Yo, sound the bell. School is in, sucker. You can't touch this. Give me a song or rhythm, making them sweat. That's what I'm giving them now. They know. You talk about the hammer, you're talking about a show that's hyped and tight. Singles are sweating so fast in my whiteboard tape. To learn what's it gonna take in the 90s to burn the charts. Legit. Either work hard or you might as well quit. That word, because you know you can't can't touch this. Break it down. Stop. Hammer time. Go with the flow. It is said if you can't groove the list, then you probably are dead. So wave your hands in the air. Bust a few moves. Run your fingers through your hair. This is it. For a winner, dance to this, and you're gonna get there. The move, slide your rump. Just for a minute, let's all do the bump, 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 bump. Yeah, you can't touch this. Look, man, you can't touch this. You better get hype, boy, cause you know you can't touch this. Ring the bell, school's back in. Break it down. Stop. Hammer time. You can't touch this. You can't touch this. You can't touch this. Break it down. Stop. Hammer time. Every time you see me, the hammer's just so hype. I'm dope on the floor and I'm magic on the mic. Now why would I ever stop doing this? With others making records that just don't hit. I tour around the world, from London to the Bay. It's hammer, go hammer, empty hammer, yo hammer, and the rest can go and play. You can't touch this. You can't touch this. You can't touch this.
All right, listeners, for our text topic, I've been asking you for your opinion. What do you think about this whole idea of being mandated? Is it mandatory to go into work? Should you have to go to work even during a natural disaster? And of course, the reason why we're talking about this is because last year and the last few years, we've had a lot of flooding during the rainy season. And we've seen the footage, the photos of people being stranded. Unfortunately, lives have been lost. And so hence we have this question for you. So we're not just talking about rain and flooding. We're talking about like blizzard-like conditions, 폭설, 지진, earthquakes, even wildfires. Should you have to go in to work? Yay or 네. 네, 전국 장마가 계속되고 있잖아요. 그래서 폭우 같은 재난, 폭설, 지진 다 포함해서 그런 재난 상황에서 출근을 꼭 하는 게 맞다. 혹은 아니다. 여러분 의견 보내주시면 됩니다. So in terms of some of your comments, we have an opinion from 어느 멋진 날님 who says, in Japan, life continues despite strong earthquakes. So in terms of, the earthquake-resistant buildings and sufficient education, that they are prepared for earthquakes. So maybe our country also needs to come up with some social measures so that people can continue their lives even in the face of natural disasters. So that is one person's take on that. I'll be back with our special interview in just a moment. Well, listeners, June is Pride Month. This is when there are celebrations and commemorations worldwide to acknowledge diverse individuals who identify as LGBTQ and their supportive allies. However, there have been incidents all around the world and there's been an upsurge in anti-LGBTQ sentiment accompanied by the introduction of legislation and social policies targeting these individuals. So let's find out more about what's happening globally. We have invited Craig Konnoth, who is a professor of law at the University of Virginia School of Law. Let's get his take. Hi, welcome to the program, Professor.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yes. So in terms of namely the U.S. right now, can you tell us about the status of anti-LGBTQ bills in the U.S.? I hear that a record number of such bills have been introduced this year. Can you give us a couple examples?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really been a record number of anti-LGBTQ bills being introduced. We're looking at about 500 bills being introduced. About 70 have passed. And they fall into various categories. I think the most numerous of these bills basically target transgender children. So children who may need medical assistance or even just to be addressed by their proper gender. These bills prohibit teachers from addressing children by their proper gender, make it more difficult for these children to remain in school. And we're seeing increases in mental health problems, suicide attempts, and other issues among this population. There are a range of other bills allowing people to discriminate based on their putative religious beliefs, bills that ban books in schools, that ban what teachers are allowed to talk about. It really is an attack on numerous fronts.
Yes. Professor, if you can maybe widen the distance between the receiver in terms of the audio feed right now?
Yeah, is this better?
Oh, yes. Thank you. We do appreciate it. So thank you for giving us the status as is right now regarding these bills and the ones that have actually passed. And you also mentioned, of course, transgender youth or kids also. What about if we go across the globe? For example, Russia, Uganda really have implemented what activists are calling regressive anti-LGBTQ legislation. And Uganda, in particular, enacting one of the world's toughest laws, including I don't know if maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, is it true that there's even the death penalty here?
Yeah, absolutely. So the death penalty applies in rare cases that don't necessarily just involve same-sex sexual conduct, but just for having intimate conduct with someone of the same sex, you can be put into prison for life. Now, I'll say this, that Uganda actually passed a similar bill years ago, and it's been struck down by its court, I think, twice now already. So we're hoping there's already been a challenge filed to the new bill, to the new law, and we're hoping that this one also gets struck down. But there has been this backsliding across the globe, as you point out. Russia passed an extremely onerous law last year. We're seeing issues literally across the world.
So in terms of similar trends like this, Professor, in other countries, can you tell us about some of the other countries and also maybe some of the underlying reasons for the rise in this anti-LGBTQ legislation and sentiment?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would tie the rise in anti-LGBTQ sentiment really to the backsliding of democratic values across the world. So within the United States, we see certain elements of the political world that kind of reject democratic values. The people who backed the former President Trump, and when we see the sort of backsliding of democratic values, we also see this authoritarianism, this attempt to impose what people see as traditional values, which they see as necessarily anti-LGBTQ. So I would actually just tie this this backsliding to authoritarianism, to anti-democratic values that we're really beginning to see spread across the globe.
So in terms of these types of legislation targeting these communities, do you think that this is really escalating the anti-LGBTQ extremism and also even just hate crimes against members of these types of communities?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there have been numerous studies done over the years that show that even if you don't see prosecutions based on these laws, right? So one commentator in Uganda said, well, we don't really punish intimate conduct that happens behind closed doors. This is meant to target public conduct. I don't think that's true, but even if that was true, there are numerous studies that show that when you have these laws on the books, it actually leads to increased violence, the ability to blackmail people, and just generally an overall life that is pretty that's pretty tough and pretty burdened when you're part of the LGBTQ community.
And Professor, do you think that the widespread use of platforms or social media might actually be aiding in the spread of some of this this sentiment?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you see the spread of anti-LGBT values, anti-democratic values, basically, false information via numerous social media outlets. So, for example, TikTok back in 2020 it was disclosed that TikTok was suppressing certain pro-LGBTQ hashtags. In 2021, it came out that they were promoting anti-LGBT videos with people who had, who were predisposed to having anti-LGBT values. So they increased the anti-LGBT sentiment. So it's absolutely the case that social media makes things worse, makes hatred worse, both towards the LGBT community and other groups as well.
And in your opinion, what do you think needs to be done to address the dissemination of such harmful content or fake news or false theories? And this isn't necessarily to take a side or say this is correct or this is incorrect or anything like that, but to address the hatred and the extremism.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, part of the problem is that we're seeing governments themselves being captured by some of these forces. I think what's necessary is for companies themselves like Twitter, TikTok, Facebook to take responsibility for the kind of hatred that their platforms spread. And they have, as a legal matter, they are insulated against this, at least within the U.S. to a large degree. But they need to take responsibility. And the problem is that there has been backsliding on that front as well. Elon Musk, for example, is famously, the owner of Twitter, is famously anti-transgender. So what we really need to do is, as consumers, place pressure on these social media companies, on other companies, to take responsibility for what they're doing and to try and make an environment that is safe for everyone to live in.
Right. So speaking of making things safe for everyone, what do you think needs to be done? What kind of actions need to be taken, not just by governments, but also organizations and communities to protect all individuals, which when we say all, that does include LGBTQ individuals and their rights as well?
Absolutely. So I think that what organizations like Facebook and Twitter and TikTok and others need to do is monitor what's happening on their platforms to have stringent policies that they enforce. So, for example, Twitter used to have a policy that prohibited misgendering and harassing of transgender individuals. It actually removed that policy because, as I pointed out, Elon Musk himself has mentioned views that are fairly anti-transgender. And so what we as consumers can do is hold these companies accountable, refuse to use them or pressure them to take responsibility for the kind of hatred that their platforms can spread.
Ah, yes. Well, thank you so much for coming on air with us and sharing your views on this matter. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
This was Professor Craig Konnoth from the University of Virginia School of Law. And so we discuss this issue. As you may have heard in Korea, there was an incident in Daegu with the Pride Festival. And hence, this is not just an issue in Korea. Obviously, it's worldwide, and hence why we tackled it. Here is our next song. We're going to take a short song break. Here it is. This is What Can I Do by The Corrs.
I haven't slept at all in days. It's been so long since we've talked, and I have been here many times. I just don't know what I'm doing wrong. What can I do to make you love me? What can I do to make you care? What can I say to make you feel this? What can I do to get you there? There's only so much I can take, and I just gotta let it go. And who knows, I might feel better, yeah, if I don't try and I don't hope. What can I do to make you love me? What can I do to make you care? What can I say to make you feel this? What can I do to get you there? No more waiting, no more aching. No more fighting, no more trying. Maybe there's nothing more to say, and in a funny way I'll come, because the power is not mine. I'm just gonna let it fly. What can I do to make you love me? What can I do to make you care? What can I say to make you feel this? What can I do to get you there? What can I do to make you love me? What can I do to make you care? What can I change to make you feel this? What can I do to get you there and love me? Love me, love me, love me, love me, honey, love me, love me, love me, love me,
You're now listening to the world's most reliable morning show, Morning Wave in Busan with Catherine. Text in to BEFM # 9050 for 101. You can also reach us for free through our YouTube live stream or on Kakao Talk. Begin your morning with Catherine, and don't forget to reboot your day after lunch. Stay tuned for Steve Hatherley Reboot every day from 2 to 4 p.m.
It's time for City Insights. We have Stephanie here. Good morning.
Good morning. Happy Thursday.
Yes. So let's dive in to find out about what you've brought for us. What's our first insight for today?
So for our first insight, I know you've been talking about the weather all day,
Yes.
but we're going to be talking about the weather a little bit more for this summer.
Yes. So, we've covered in the past about how these abnormal weather events, they're definitely occurring around the world. And many people are concerned about what this summer is really going to look like.
Right. So to hear all about this, I met with the Director General of the Busan Regional Meteorological Administration, Ms. Kim Hyun-kyung. And according to the KMA summer forecast, there is a 40% probability that summertime temperature here in Busan, Ulsan, Gyeongnam region will be same or higher than in the previous years.
Yes. And we've also been hearing that, this summer, El Nino, there's going to be a lot of rain and whatnot.
And a lot of people are investing in rain boots and different things, right, for this summer.
Yes.
So I asked Ms. Kim Hyun-kyung about the forecast on precipitation. So let's take a listen.
예, 부울경 지역의 강수량은 평년과 비슷하거나 다소 많을 것으로 예상하고 있는데 특히 7월에는 강수량이 평년보다 많을 확률이 50% 정도 되고 8월에는 비슷하거나 많을 확률이 각각 40%로 예상하고 있습니다. 1년 동안 우리 지역에 내리는 비가 평균이 약 1,516mm 정도 되고 이 중에 약 51%인 775mm가 여름에 집중해서 내리기 때문에 여름철에는 비 피해 예방에 각별히 조심하셔야 합니다.
네.
특히 최근 들어서는 짧은 시간 많은 비를 내리는 집중호우가 더 자주 그리고 더 강하게 발생하고 있어서 이에 대한 대비를 잘 하셔야겠습니다.
Right. So Ms. Kim Hyun-kyung said that the weather authorities forecast that the precipitation for Busan, Ulsan, Gyeongnam will be similar or higher or slightly more than in the previous years. There is a 50% chance that July's precipitation will be higher than in previous years and 40% chance that precipitation in August will be similar or higher than in previous years. She also said we get an average of 1,560 millimeter of rain in a year and 51% of that comes down in the summertime. So we have to be particularly careful of rain-related damages in the summer. In particular, we've been getting frequent and strong concentrated heavy rain in short periods, so we have to be extra careful of this as well.
Indeed. And as we're going through this insight right now, I want to, of course, address the fact that we have listeners all over,
right?
Especially in the Seoul capital, Gyeonggi region. We're getting reports of heavy rain. So please, I implore everybody, be careful out there today. Yes.
That's right. And with that, I'm sure many of our listeners have heard that it's possible that it will rain every day in July, except for maybe 3 days. And I've also heard that it's just a rumor. So I asked Ms. Kim Hyun-kyung about this. She said it is scientifically impossible to forecast the daily weather for the entire month of July so far in advance.
Right.
There are also long-term forecasts like seasonal predictions that are based on trends over a certain period expressed as a probability, but it's impossible to say it's going to rain every day except for 3 days.
Yes, so maybe you can explain to our listeners from what you found out from the interview why it's so difficult to forecast daily weather even.
Right, so she said that can be explained by the butterfly effect. This is when small errors form a chain of effects that create an unpredictable large error. So to make weather forecasts, authorities input weather observation data into the forecast model and use the supercomputer to calculate future weather. And in this process, the errors in the data grow bigger when the calculation period is over a longer period, resulting in low reliability. So they actually recommend that we check the weather forecast every day rather than looking at long-term forecasts.
That's why we have Annie doing that twice every morning for us, right?
That's right.
So how can we prepare for this summer?
Right. So in Dongjak district in Seoul back in August of last year, they saw 381.5 millimeter of rain overnight, which is 30% of the yearly precipitation. And these abnormal climate phenomena are a common occurrence these days. So we have to make sure use the up-to-date weather forecast to prepare disasters that come from heavy rain, typhoons, and heat waves. Check in, of course, with Morning Wave every morning. Go to the KMA website website as well, which is www.weather.go.kr, or their app to check weather forecasts frequently. And when there is a heat wave, the KMA issues heat wave alerts as well as guidelines across health, fisheries, and industries. So please make use of these services.
Yes, it's going to be really important this time of year.
Right.
So let's stay safe out there during the rainy season. Let's move on to our second insight. What's it about?
Right. So for our second insight, we're going to be talking about the National Championship for Baristas with Disabilities.
Oh, well, tell us about this event.
So this event took place in Busan last week from June 21st to 24th. It was the 7th National Championship for Baristas with Disabilities. And to hear more about the event, I spoke with Mr. Ko Ju-bok. He is the president of BCM. The company is Best Coffee Machine, BCM, and he's also the host of National Championship for Baristas with Disabilities. So let's take a listen as he shares about how he came to host this event and about the winner of the championship this year.
예, 전국 장애인 바리스타 대회는 한국커피연합회가 주최하고 부산국제장애인협의회가 주관하는 대회입니다. 이 바리스타들에게 전문 기술을 교육하여서 안정적인 일자리를 제공하고 사회 참여 기회를 주는 것이 큰 목적입니다. 2014년 전국 장애인 바리스타들을 부산에서 최초로 개최한 이후에 장애인과 함께하는 커피도시 부산을 알리고자 이번 대회도 유치하게 되었습니다. 이번에 제7회 전국 장애인 바리스타 대회 챔피언은 김동원 씨, 시각장애인입니다. 현재 안마사도 하고 바리스타 일도 병행하고 있는데 김동원 씨는 양식조리사, 한식조리사, 기능사 자격증도 취득한 인재입니다. 이번 얘기는 장애와 구분 없이 본인이 도와야 하는 일이 있다면 해야 한다는 마음을 가지신 분이십니다. 이번에 우승하신 김동원 씨뿐만 아니라 이번에 장애인 바리스타 대회에 출전하신 선수들 모두 최선을 다해서 도전하는 마음이 너무나 멋있다고 생각합니다.
So he said that the National Championship for Baristas with Disabilities is hosted by the Korea Coffee Association and operated by the Busan International Council for People with Disabilities. Its aim is to help people with disabilities learn the skills to become a barista, to provide them with employment and socio-economic participation. And he hosted the 2015 National Championship for Baristas with Disabilities for the first time here in Busan. And he hosted this event to promote the coffee city Busan together with people with disabilities. Now this year, the winner of this championship was Mr. Kim Dong-won, who has visual impairment. He works as a masseuse and a barista, and he's a talented chef with a certification in both Korean food and Western food. And he tries to do his best in whatever he can and tries to help out and do what he can regardless of his disability. And he was our guest. He was talking about how he was really touched by not only Mr. Kim, but all of the other participants and their spirit of doing their best to push and challenge themselves.
You know, I do have a question, though, because we were talking about, in particular, for example, for Mr. Kim Dong-won, who has a visual impairment or visual disability, then how is he able to, be a barista or even cook with that the visual disability?
Right, great question. So some of these people, they have disabilities related to developmental or physical. So every one of them, they have an assistant during the competition.
Okay.
He shared, our guest shared that they practice together for months. So usually they're family members.
I see.
It actually helps them to work together and bond over a same goal. So it actually does greater good than just the competition.
Oh, thanks for finding out for us. Yes. And in terms of, Busan's coffee industry overall, the city is really behind this, launching a Coffee City Busan initiative. So did you get a chance to maybe ask him his opinions regarding this policy?
Yes, so I asked him how he sees this policy as a member of the coffee industry. So let's take a listen.
커피 도시 부산은 미래가 아주 무궁무진합니다. 부산 국내 커피 원두, 생두 90% 이상이 부산항을 통해서 들어오는 커피 물류 허브 도시입니다. 부산시는 작년부터 앞으로 이제 4년 동안 180억 원을 투자해서 국내 최초 커피 산업 육성을 지원하며 커피도시 부산을 홍보하고 있습니다. 그리고 내년 5월 달에 전 세계 커피인들의 올림픽이라고 불리는 2023 월드 오브 커피 아시아와 2024 월드 바리스타 챔피언십이 부산에서 동시 개최됩니다. 그렇다면 부산시가 진정한 커피 도시로 발돋움하기 위해 노력하여진다고 보고 있는데요. 장애인과 비장애인 모두 커피 도시 부산이 되기를 바라면서 올림픽을 개최한 뒤 바로 패럴림픽을 하듯이 부산에서 월드 장애인 바리스타 챔피언십이 개최되기를 희망합니다.
Right, so he said that future of coffee city Busan is limitless. Over 90% of coffee beans that are distributed domestically are imported through our city Busan, and it's a hub city for coffee logistics. And Busan City has invested 18 billion won to foster the coffee industry as the first in the country to do so and to promote the coffee city Busan. On top of this, the 2024 World of Coffee Asia and the 2024 World Barista Championship will be hosted in Busan next year. And these are known as the Coffee Olympics in the industry. So he sees that Busan is certainly trying its best to grow as a coffee city. He says that this coffee city will be for both people with disabilities and people without disabilities. And he will do his best to host the World Barista Championship for people with disabilities, just as the Paralympics are held right after the Olympics.
Great comparison. So thank you for bringing these two insights to our listeners today. Very fascinating to hear about two different interviews. So we do appreciate it. Thank you so much, Stephanie.
Bye-bye.
This was City Insights. Yes. So today we, of course, talked about natural disasters because it is the rainy season. And Tommy Neem says, heavy rain, not quite here yet. But yes, I wanted to get that warning out there because that's what you might be expecting in your neck of the woods. And so, of course, weather prediction is not perfect, as Stephanie just explained to us why it's very difficult to predict it accurately. However, I say it's much better to be safe than sorry. So, yes, maybe pack your umbrellas, your rain boots if necessary, depending on where you are. And always check into your local weather information and broadcasting to make sure you're up to date. And with that, we're going to say a goodbye with this song, 인형의 꿈 by 일기예보. Have a good one, everybody. Bye-bye.
여기 있는데 조금만 고개를 돌려도 날 볼 수 있을 텐데 처음엔 그대로조차 그저 볼 수만 있다면 하지만 끝없는 기다림에 이제 난 지쳐가나 봐 한 걸음 뒤에 항상 내가 있었는데 그대 영원히 내 모습 볼 수 없나요 나를 바라보며 내게 손짓하며 언제나 사랑할 텐데 난 매일 꿈을 꾸죠 함께 얘기 나누는 꿈 하지만 그 후에 아픔을 그댄 알 수 없죠 한 걸음 뒤에 항상 내가 있었는데 그대 영원히 내 모습 볼 수 없나요 나를 바라보며 내게 손짓하며 언제나 사랑할 텐데 사람들은 내게 말했었죠 왜 그토록 한 곳만 보는지 없었죠 내 마음은 작은 인형처럼 그대만을 향했는다 나를 바라보며 내게 손짓하며 언제나 사랑할 텐데
부산을 한 장의 사진에 담는다면 어디로 가야 할까요? 꼬꼬마 시절 이때만큼은 세상을 내려다보며 꿈을 키웠고 용돈을 모아 산 사진기는 아직도 서랍 속에 있습니다. 시간이 흘러 키는 자라고 사진은 어디서든 찍을 수 있는 세상이 되었지만 부산의 진짜 모습을 보기 위해서는 같이 가볼 곳이 있습니다. 광복동에서